Yarwood.
So to your right side. That's it. Straighten it.
Mr. Jack Kennedy of the company Deloitte Haskins and Sells, formerly Yarwood Vane and Company, said the money had been given to Mr. Gallagher in 3 lump sums by builders who were supporting him in a faction fight against the union's New South Wales secretary, Mr. Jack Mundy, at the time of the Green Band's campaign. Mr. Kennedy said the first payment of $10,000 had been made by 4 South Australian builders in November 1974. Each had paid $2,500. Mr. Kennedy said there was nothing unusual in the fact that he'd arranged the Mr. Kennedy said there was nothing unusual in the fact that he'd transferred money for such purposes. He said individual builders often... Mr. Kennedy said there was nothing unusual in the fact that he'd transferred money for such purposes. He said individual builders often... I'm having trouble on that word. Mr. Kennedy said there was nothing unusual in the fact that he'd transferred the money for such purposes. He said individual builders often pooled their money for different reasons, such as donations to political parties or even universities. Mr. Kennedy, whose firm was called Yarwood Vane and Company, said he had no knowledge of that cheque. Mr. O'Callaghan said the cheque was eventually credited to the account of an A.J. Day, whose name also appeared on plans for Mr. Gallagher's beach house at East Gippsland. He said the money was then transferred to the account of Hanson and Yuncken after a steel frame for Mr. Gallagher's house had been completed in April 1975. In Melbourne, this is Ian Henderson reporting. No, if the sound's okay, I'm happy with it.